Defense News. It's proudly sponsored by Navy Federal Credit Union. If you're a member of our nation's armed forces, the Department of Defense, or if your family is, we'd be proud to serve you too.
On this episode of Defense News Weekly, a new design for subs to carry Navy SEALs on clandestine missions. Find out how the specialized submersibles are being improved. And updated regs for Navy maternity uniforms? We have the latest. Also, Defense News has published its annual list of the top 100 companies in the defense space. Find out who topped the list in the 2023 edition. Plus, a year into the PACT Act, a look at how the sweeping law has affected veterans. Also, the biggest warship in the world is the aircraft carrier Gerald R. Ford. Take a ride along on the ship for an inside look. Finally, no one does propaganda like North Korea and China. We've got some highlights from recent events. You don't want to miss that. It's those stories and more in the latest in news and analysis from the Pentagon to the platoon here on Defense News Weekly. Welcome back to Defense News Weekly. Outgoing Sergeant Major of the Army Michael Grinston has overseen a pivotal era of the military's largest force. With a tenure that spanned the pandemic and numerous political controversies surrounding the military, he remained an engaged and well-liked leader. In a recent conversation with Military Times' Todd South, Grinston talked about engaging with soldiers via social media and how making people mad often means you're staying true to the Army's core values. Check it out.
I think as the Sergeant Major of the Army, you have an obligation to tell people things they don't want to hear. A lot of people aren't comfortable with that. No four-star general, no political appointee wants to hear something that's not good. I don't agree with that. That's your job. You're going to make people mad. They have a moral obligation to tell people the truth, even if they don't want to hear it. And I usually say this in context when people ask me, how do I become the Sergeant Major of the Army? I said, whatever you do, don't try to be the Sergeant Major of the Army, because you're not going to do your job. Most of the meetings you go into, you're the only enlisted in there, or it doesn't matter what meeting, and I'm not just talking about in the building, it's just, hey, here's what we have. This is what I saw with our soldiers. Well, I disagree. Okay, I appreciate it, but I was down there with them, and that's what they told me. So, believe it or not, it's in our Army reg. It says you can stick up for them in person or online. And sometimes people don't like that. But I don't take attacks in person on my soldiers. I definitely don't take it well in combat. So I don't take it well anywhere. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you come from, what's your background, men, women, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you say it. I don't like it when people attack our soldiers, and I push back. If you try to please the person you're talking to, you may not do what's right by the Army. That's what I meant. You might make people upset. You're going to say things. So don't try to get to the next job and please everybody. Give them your best advice. Do what's right for your soldiers. You make people mad and they told it against you, so be it. Don't try to get the next job. Do what's right for your people. I think it's really important to stay in touch with our soldiers. And if they communicate through social media, I think we have to go where they're going to communicate. And it's not just the troop visits, so it's also reaching out, all the time to stay in touch. And we saw it be very powerful during COVID. How do we do, travel and see soldiers and get their, what they're worried about during COVID? And we found doing a town hall on, some kind of live stream or just kind of reaching out through Microsoft Teams or whatever platform we have. But I think it's been really important, and I'd highly recommend everybody to use it as much as you can. It does come with risks, though. You do have to be open. You got to understand you're going to get direct messages. Some people are going to post some things they shouldn't. So I think I've watched it really grow over time, and to include myself. I've grown, even in the last 4 years, as the SMA in my attitude towards social media. It's just been a lot of growth. And in the beginning, I probably was risk adverse and said, don't say too much, don't reach out as much. And then I became much more open and willing to take a lot more risk and to open up to our soldiers, because I felt like I wasn't doing enough to say just some of the truths on social media. So you could probably see a distinct shift around year one, about 1.5, where I said, I need to do more.
And around the world, a former United States military pilot's Australia extradition hearing on U.S. charges, including that he illegally trained Chinese aviators, was postponed while authorities investigate the role of an Australian spy agency in his arrest. Boston-born Dan Duggan, 54, was arrested by Australian police in October near his home in Orange, New South Wales, and has been fighting extradition to the United States. The former Marine Corps major and flying instructor maintains he has done nothing wrong and is an innocent victim of a worsening power struggle between Washington and Beijing. His lawyers successfully applied for the extradition hearing to be delayed until November 24th, while they await findings about their allegation that Duggan, now an Australian citizen, was illegally lured from China back to Australia in 2022 to be arrested. The regulator of Australia's 6 spy agencies announced in March that he was investigating Duggan's allegation that the Australian Security Intelligence Organization was part of a US plot to extradite him. The Australian government is reviewing laws to ensure former military personnel cannot sell expertise to the Chinese military. Safrine Duggan, Duggan's wife and mother of their 6 children, addressed more than 20 supporters who protested outside the court for his release.
The toll on our kids and family is horrendous. We're saddened, we're mortified, we're horrified that something like this could happen, not only to us, but to anyone. This is a man that has no Australian charges and is in solitary confinement for 9 months. I mean, I would never have thought this could ever happen in Australia, let alone to our family.
Dan Duggan said the Chinese pilots he trained while he was contracted by the Test Flying Academy of South Africa in 2011 and 2012, the period covered by the charges, were civilians. And he maintained nothing he taught was classified. And in other military news, the latest secretive underwater vehicle for delivering Navy SEALs to secret mission destinations achieved initial operational capability late last month. The so-called dry combat submersible is a sort of mini submarine that can launch from a regular Navy sub with SEALs inside. While SEALs have deployed in mini subs for decades, the latest design has a new twist. It allows them to travel underwater without having to wear a wetsuit or be exposed to weather or the water during the trip. Made by Lockheed Martin, the new sub allows for 2 SEALs to operate the vehicle while staying warm and dry, and features a lock-in, lock-out chamber. Up to 8 SEALs in total can fit in the 40-foot-long, battery-powered submersible, according to the DoD. Officials did not indicate when the new vehicle would be fully ready for deployment. And over at Big Navy, the Sea Service is modifying its maternity uniform pilot program to allow women more leeway to customize what they wear. Initially in the program, pregnant sailors received one of each type of maternity uniform offered, along with a standard cardigan. But women reported they didn't wear all of the uniforms, prompting the Navy to allow female sailors to choose just the ones they want. The latest policy update does not include any design changes. And from the defense side of the house, Defense News recently published its top 100 defense companies for 2023. The list is compiled each year based on revenue among the firms that provide defense contracting services to militaries and governments worldwide. Topping the list this year was Lockheed Martin, with $63 billion in fiscal year 2022 revenue, almost all of which was from defense contracting, followed by RTX, formerly known as Raytheon, and Northrop Grumman. Aviation Industry Corporation of China and Boeing rounded out the top 5, with Chinese companies claiming 2 more of the top 10 spots. For full coverage of this year's list, and to find out how your favorite defense company did for 2023, head to defensenews.com/top100. When we come back, a look at the world's biggest and most advanced warship, the American-made Gerald R. Ford. Come aboard when we return. The aircraft carrier Gerald R. Ford is a centerpiece of the American global military suite. At 1,000 feet long, the nuclear-powered floating airfield is as complicated as it is large, and requires its own small flotilla to run as support ships and escorts. As a part of the US arsenal, it's also a part of the weaponry at hand for the NATO alliance, and in that capacity, went through a training exercise with allied countries recently off the coast of Portugal. For a look at the Ford and the exercise, we turn to a piece from NATO's Multimedia Division.
It's the largest warship in the world. On the high seas, it stands unrivaled. And for its very first deployment, the aircraft carrier USS Gerald R. Ford headed from North America to Europe, making the transatlantic journey to train alongside NATO allies. The Gerald R. Ford is the first ship in a new class of U.S. Navy aircraft carriers. It's a nuclear-powered, technologically advanced floating airfield with enough firepower to deter potential adversaries on site. After years of sea trials and shock tests, the Ford was finally ready to deploy alongside NATO allies in October 2022.
If I had to capture what a carrier strike group is, I would describe it simply as a centerpiece of power projection. We operate self-sustained, independent, and can go anywhere globally to wherever we need to go at the drop of a hat.
Commissioned in 2017, the USS Gerald R. Ford is the first ship in a brand new class, and, according to the U.S. Navy, the most technologically advanced carrier to ever set sail. But what makes it different from what came before?
Our propulsion plant is all new electrical distribution system. Smaller crew, intended for less maintenance. We're excited about the new technologies that Ford brings to the table. The most prominent ones are the electromagnetic aircraft launch system and the advanced arresting gear.
Most aircraft carriers launch jets off their flight decks with catapults powered by steam, but you won't see any hot air coming off the Ford's flight deck. This ship uses an electromagnetic launch system to get its jets airborne. When it comes to these new catapults, there's more than meets the eye.
We can shoot aircraft at a wider range in terms of weight, and we anticipate using more unmanned vehicles in the coming years. Those might be lighter than the strike fighters that we're shooting right now, and we anticipate less stress on those aircraft, less lifetime cost on the aircraft.
But when it comes down to it, the most important thing on an aircraft carrier is the aircraft. Embarked on the Ford is Carrier Air Wing 8, which includes approximately 60 aircraft. From strike fighters to surveillance aircraft and helicopters, each airframe has a role.
You can almost think of it like a football team. You have layers of defense, you also have layers of offense. They all have to work together in order for that play to succeed.
While a fully loaded flight deck is certainly impressive, those planes can't fly without pilots.
About an hour prior to your takeoff, you're going to go get kitted up, get all your flight gear on, and then it's time to go up to the flight deck. So the flight deck is always a very dynamic and quite dangerous place, so you kind of have to be strategic. Once you're in the airplane, a whole bunch of checks to do between your systems and the ship. It's a whole lot of work leading up to that catch shot, which is the moment that you've been waiting for.
The defining trait of a naval aviator is the ability to land on a small, floating runway in the middle of a very large and very unforgiving sea.
Landing on an aircraft carrier is definitely difficult. It's challenging. We've got a whole lot of technology helping us do it. In the moments leading up to touching down on the aircraft carrier, really kind of fine-tuning those corrections to make sure that you're on the optimal glide path just prior to touching down. There might have used to be panic and uncertainty. That's what you do all the training for, to get all of those moments out of the way.
It's been several days since the Ford set off from Halifax. Its sailors have settled into the groove of daily operations. With more than 4,000 sailors aboard, the Ford isn't just a ship. It's an office, a dinner table, a gym, a home. A ship this big can burn through supplies at an alarming rate. To top off its stocks, the Ford must conduct replenishments at sea, a complicated operation where pulleys and helicopters ferry across everything from jet fuel to air-to-air missiles to mail from home.
Being at sea for a long period of time, it does get a little stressful sometimes. You have to find ways to be able to relieve stress, whether that be going to the gym, decompressing, having conversations with other people and friends. We have to make that camaraderie and be able to get to the finish line of the mission.
The Ford has crossed the Atlantic to arrive off the shores of Portugal. Sailing alongside it are ships from 6 NATO allies. Their job is to keep the carrier safe and to provide extra firepower in the simulated battles that will test the carrier strike group's combat readiness.
No nation can truly stand on their own. We are stronger as an alliance, and so working together allows us to create those frameworks and through exercises truly be able to work in partnership with each other whenever we need to.
With unmatched range and power, the Ford now leads Allied navies in the crucial task of deterring aggression and, if necessary, defending NATO against external threats. In these uncertain times, the world's largest warship is on watch in Europe and on guard.
Since the signing of the PACT Act in 2022, the major expansion of medical coverage for veterans has already had major benefits, according to a new report. Hundreds of thousands of vets have received additional benefits since the law went into effect. The PACT Act expanded VA benefits for conditions linked to toxic chemicals, such as those seen in burn pits in Iraq and Afghanistan, and Agent Orange in Vietnam. Following exposure to toxic chemicals while on duty, service members of all branches developed a variety of conditions that were often hard to link to their time in uniform.
Myself, along with most all of my unit, rotated with burn pit duty. I believe I probably had burn pit duty maybe 1 or 2 times a week. It kind of started mid-deployment. I would say July, I started having kind of excruciating migraines while we were downrange, like headaches daily, migraines maybe 2 or 3 times a week, and really bad sinus congestion, like a lot of coughing, sneezing, getting really like a lot of pressure in our face kind of built up. A year of doing that, along with battling some of the mental health pieces of it, is when I finally decided to kind of reach out to the VA and see how they might be able to help, because this wasn't who I was before I got in.
Veterans said the expanded coverage from the PACT Act has already had major benefits.
Benefits have been phenomenal. Just to be able to get those certain things as a service connection. I don't really have to worry as much.
But Secretary of Veterans Affairs Dennis McDonough said though many vets have seen benefits from the new law, there is still more work to be done.
Am I satisfied? I'm not. Until every veteran in this country knows what is available to him or to her and has come in and filed their claim, and then we've awarded that claim for him or her, I won't be satisfied, so I'm not satisfied.
And stand by while we go to break. When we return, our personal finance expert gives insight on some of the best places for veterans to live. Welcome back. On this edition of Money Minute, Navy Federal Credit Union personal finance expert Jeanette Mack looks at some of the best places veterans can live.
Military families PCS on average every 2.5 years while on active duty. When it's time to retire or leave the military, that means planting roots. Of course, if you have a job already lined up, you'd have to live wherever your next job takes you. But if you don't, and with so many companies hiring remotely, you could live anywhere in the US. It's best to go where veterans are more apt to thrive. Look for an inclusive community where you can feel a sense of belonging. Maybe that means finding cities where large populations of veterans live and work. Chances are there are groups and events aimed at or run by veterans for veteran causes that you can become involved with. Or if you're thinking of opening a business, being located in a veteran-friendly city can help your bottom line. And of course, if you're in the market for your next career move, larger cities will have more avenues to take. But again, with more and more companies hiring with work-from-home options, you can opt to live far outside the city and enjoy the best of both worlds. In the end, what you want to do is plant roots where the ground is solid and welcoming for you and your family, a place where you can find and be happy with your next mission in life.
Thanks, Jeanette. We'll see you next week. To get more coverage of military and defense topics, roll out of that rack and check out Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps Times.com, as well as defensenews.com. And to get a daily update on all the latest news, sign up for our Early Bird Brief newsletter, compiled each morning to bring you the latest headlines. It's also in audio. Check out the podcast version, out every weekday, wherever you get your podcasts. And if social media is where you get your open source intelligence, follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Don't go anywhere. When we return, we see some military theatrics from North Korea and China that you won't want to miss. Welcome back to Defense News Weekly. I'm Irene Lowenson. Public saber rattling is often a fine art, a sophisticated display of power and military might meant to deliver a serious message to one's global rivals. But sometimes, it's also just a spectacle, and few places revel in overwrought military displays more than North Korea.
하늘 초병들에게 뜨거운 감례를 보내십니다. 조선노동당 중앙위원회 정치국 상무위원회 위원이며 당중앙군사위원회 부위원장이며
To mark the country's annual Victory Day celebrations, North Korea rolled out all kinds of military hardware, from drones to missiles, before throngs of citizens. Also featured heavily, the presence of Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu and delegates from China, meant to show cooperation among the three countries. And it just wouldn't be a parade without North Korean leader Kim Jong-un presiding over the theatrics.
대우의 선두에는 어젯날의 춘희 중대 분대장이었던
증오 70년을 다지고 펴려온 증벌의 힘을 채워 천력의 무리들을 쳐부시고 승리의 세력사 우리 세계리라. 한가리 준엄한 결전이요 옳다면 오라 이의 피동 시절에.
I mean, no one does it better, right? Or do they? The Chinese Defense Ministry was also out with a solid propaganda entry recently, with a highlight reel of some members of the Chinese People's Armed Police doing some things, I guess? Not sure. So let's just roll the tape and you decide. All right. Hey, you can't say it's boring. That's all we have time for in this episode. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.